Disclaimer. The video serves informational and entertainment purpose only. The content is considered speculative and should not be treated as confirmed fact. We encourage you to conduct your research and form your conclusion. They called it a dream, a fairy tale brought to life for a new generation. But what began as Disney's ambitious return to a beloved classic has spiraled into an unprecedented disaster, leaving a trail of broken box office records, brutal critic reviews, and a central figure who has seemingly vanished into the digital ether. We're talking about Snow White and Rachel Zegler. Her movie just scored a shocking 2.3 out of 10 on IMDb, the lowest ever for a Disney princess film. Think about that for a second. Lower than any other. A cinematic abyss that critics are calling lifeless, preachy, and weirdly smug. This isn't just a flop, besties. This is a cultural collapse. A brand catastrophe so profound that whispers are already swirling about the movie being pulled early from theaters due to empty seats. But here's where it gets chilling. While the world points fingers at Zegler, screaming about a woke flop, Rachel herself didn't post, didn't unfollow, didn't release a defiant statement. She simply vanished. Not just from social media, where she's technically still online, but from where it mattered most, Disney+, the very platform meant to immortalize her as Disney's newest princess. She's gone, erased, quietly, surgically, without a single warning. It started as a subtle ripple. The Snow White tile, gone. No listing, no coming soon, no trailer, no banner. Then it escalated into a full-blown digital execution. Rachel Zegler's own Disney Plus actor profile suddenly missing. No mention, no credits, not even a placeholder. It's as if she was never part of the Disney machine at all. This wasn't a glitch, my friends. This was a premeditated act. What force could compel a studio built on perfect images and flawless illusions to so completely airbrush its newest princess from existence? To pretend its billion-dollar legacy reboot simply never happened? And why did they go to such extremes? Even sidelining her from major public appearances like the Oscar Princess presentation, despite her having a hit movie this year. This is more than just a bad box office. This is a conspiracy of silence, a strategic erasure that begs the chilling question: what really happened behind the scenes that was so toxic, so damaging, that Disney had no choice but to digitally execute its own princess? The answer, friends, might just explain everything.
This is just pathetic. Look at this right here. Snow White scraps up a measly $12 million in opening day box office. Could have a worse weekend than The Marvels and Dumbo. Now, if you guys didn't know, The Marvels and Dumbo is the bottom of the pile when it comes to box office for Disney. Those movies lost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars, and it looks like Rachel Zegler's Snow White movie is headed in that direction. And look at this right here. Even mainstream media is calling out this movie for being garbage. Look at this right here. Woke flop Snow White could see one of Disney's sleepiest opening weekends. Listen, this movie made like $2 million on Thursday, right? Which is the previews day. Usually this is where when people come out and they go see your movie, you're supposed to have a higher number than 2 million. But bro, this movie is not gonna make more than $46 million opening weekend, which is a disaster for Disney.
The Rachel Zegler effect has begun. According to scooper Daniel RPK, Rachel Zegler has been recast in Paddington 3 due to strikes, but I have a sneaking suspicion the strikes are only a cop-out for the fact that she has had so much negative press. She is certainly one of the key reasons why the Snow White movie is absolutely doomed. She's probably one of the key reasons why the next Hunger Games movie is gonna totally flop. And now the folks that are making the third Paddington movie are probably just using the strikes as an excuse to make sure that she's recast. Because I think if they outwardly said, well, we recast her because she just ruins everything she touches, that might not be a good look from the studio. But my speculation is that is actually what's going on here.
Imagine the glitz, the glamour, the unseen beginning. It was supposed to be a fairy tale in itself. Rachel Zegler, the breakout star from West Side Story, a fresh face, a powerful voice, stepping into the iconic glass slippers of Snow White. Disney's vision was grand. A billion-dollar legacy reboot, a live-action spectacle, a Disney princess for a new generation. This initial collaboration, behind the closed doors of casting calls and early script readings, seemed almost harmonious. Zegler, by her own admission, didn't even know what she was auditioning for at first. just reading lines until the director, Mark Webb, casually mentioned dopey and whistling, and then a light bulb moment. She famously said, "I will elbow everyone out of the way to play that part." The early vision was clear, a fresh, modern take, yet steeped in the magic that defines Disney. It was her crowning moment, her biggest role yet, a guaranteed ascent to Hollywood superstardom. The cultural stakes were immeasurable. Disney wasn't just remaking a movie. They were touching a sacred part of cinematic history, a story woven into the very fabric of childhoods worldwide. This wasn't just a box office gamble. It was a test of loyalty from generations of fans. Rachel Zegler was positioned as the face of Disney's next era, a symbol of evolution, diversity, and modern storytelling. The pressure, even then, was immense, an invisible weight that could either forge a diamond or crush it. But even in those early, seemingly idyllic days, there were whispers, hints of a sudden shift that few could pinpoint, yet everyone would soon feel. The initial harmony began to fray, loyalties became fuzzy, and subtle suspicions started to surface, like cracks appearing in a pristine porcelain doll. This beloved story, which had captivated audiences since 1937, was about to undergo changes so radical, so controversial, that they would ignite a firestorm hotter than any dragon's breath. The vision, initially shared, began to diverge, whispers growing louder about how different this Snow White would truly be. The industry watched, holding its breath. Could this new Snow White live up to the impossible legacy? Could Rachel Zegler, with her undeniable talent, navigate the treacherous waters of fan expectations and corporate demands? The stage was set not just for a movie premiere, but for a cultural confrontation. And as the first glimpses of the film began to leak, the tension started to coil, tightening with every passing day. Because what the public didn't know then, what they were about to discover, would shake the very foundations of this perceived fairy tale and transform a dream project into a full-blown nightmare. And then, the fireworks truly began. The slow, sudden shift in dynamics, barely noticeable at first, exploded into a full-blown inferno with the moment the first trailer dropped. It wasn't just the visuals or the direction. It was Zegler herself. Clips of her press interviews, once meant to drum up excitement, started going viral for all the wrong reasons. This wasn't just a misstep. It was an alleged act of self-sabotage, an unmasking of what many perceived as a glaring disconnect behind the persona. In one infamous clip, she laughed off the original Snow White story, calling it weird, and casually dismissed the prince as a guy who literally stalks her. The internet recoiled. In another, she bragged that her version wouldn't be dreaming about love or a happy ending, proclaiming her Snow White would be dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, a girl boss, as the commentary so cuttingly put it. And in a third, she proudly admitted she hated the original story as a kid, hinting that her film was nothing like the 1937 version. This wasn't just a marketing misstep. It was a perceived insult to the very legacy she was meant to carry. Suddenly, woke Snow White was trending, not as a celebration, but as a battle cry for boycotts. Disney fans, the very same loyal legions who once rallied behind Zegler's Cinderella-style rise to fame, turned on her overnight. TikTok exploded with edits mocking her attitude. Twitter lit up with savage side-by-side comparisons of her and the original Snow White voice actress, showing just how far Disney had allegedly strayed. This wasn't just typical internet outrage. This was a deeply personal betrayal felt by a fan base that cherished a classic. The backlash landed squarely on Zegler's shoulders. The criticism wasn't just about a bad script or misguided direction. It was about a star who, seemingly, insulted the very source material she was tasked with embodying. This was a direct X versus Y setup, fan base versus star, traditionalists versus modern interpretations. The ego perceived in her interviews, the alleged hypocrisy of accepting such an iconic role only to publicly disparage its roots, became the fuel for a full-blown meltdown. When the film finally hit theaters, it wasn't just a flop, it was a box office catastrophe. Scrapping up a measly $12 million on opening day, it was poised for a worse weekend than The Marvels and Dumbo, movies that lost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars. Mainstream media, usually more reserved, openly called it garbage and a woke flop. Rachel Zegler went from being hailed as the face of Disney's next era to being the undisputed face of its biggest disaster since the Mulan remake. Disney had an unmitigated mess on its hands, and while the dust was still settling, they made a move so drastic, so unexpected, that it sent shivers down the spines of industry insiders. What could Disney do when faced with such a profound rejection from its own audience? The answer, as it turned out, was to make a certain princess simply disappear.
You are being led like sheep by this flock mentality of attacking the remake. But have you watched the movie? Weird. Because I did.
Press reviews that are rolling in are just brutal. And people are going as far as thinking that the movie is going to get pulled early from theaters because they're not selling any tickets. And the world is really pointing fingers at Rachel Zegler for all of this.
Not to add fuel to the Rachel Zegler Oscar fiasco, but why did they have these women, all Disney princesses, all stated as Disney princesses, come out to present, but like not include Rachel Zegler, who's going to be Snow White? They're clearly acknowledging Disney princesses from movies that have not been released yet. Someone must have had this conversation and then they purposely left her out, even though she was the only one with a hit movie this year of the four. Did anyone else notice this, or am I overthinking?
It sounds like you're one of the only ones there, just like Rachel Zegler, as it turns out, and we part with this video of Rachel Zegler alone in a theater watching herself. One of the most unlikable humans.
That
ever.
is sadder than when the original Snow White eats the apple.
And then, the unthinkable began to unfold. While the box office numbers flatlined and the critical reviews were a bloodbath, Disney made a move that no one, and I mean no one, expected. They didn't issue a statement, they didn't defend, they didn't even acknowledge the elephant in the room. They just acted. And what fans uncovered next made things even darker, sparking a chaotic, chilling info storm across the internet. It started subtly. Weeks after Snow White's theatrical release, fans began asking, when is it coming to Disney+? Usually, Disney's big-budget films, even the underperformers, hit the streaming platform within weeks, gaining a second life, a quiet fade into the digital library. But Snow White never showed up. No official release date, no homepage banners, no mention at all. And then, the evidence began to pour in. The Snow White tile itself, once visible, was simply gone. No previews, no trailers, no watch later button. It was as if the movie was never even scheduled to release on the platform. This wasn't a glitch. It was a scalpel-like removal. But here's where the story takes an even more sinister turn, directly revealing the digital disappearance of a Disney princess. It wasn't just the movie's tile. Rachel Zegler's own Disney Plus actor profile had vanished too. The hub page that lists an actor's appearances across Disney content, her name gone, her image gone, her entire filmography scrubbed clean. Reddit threads exploded overnight, fans posting before and after screenshots, showing Zegler's name completely removed from the actor index. Some users found her profile in other regions, only for it to lead to a blank page or redirect entirely when clicked. Just like that, a Disney princess was being digitally erased. The reaction from the online community was a mix of confusion, suspicion, and outright alarm. "It doesn't make sense," they cried. "Even if the movie flopped, it still exists. Why remove any trace of it? Why hide Zegler?" Disney's silence was deafening. Major entertainment blogs reached out for comment. They received no response, fueling the paranoia. Was this Disney quietly pulling the plug? Were they trying to pretend the film and its lead never happened? This wasn't mere damage control. This was a corporate erasure, a deliberate act of quiet dissociation. The pattern was chillingly familiar to what happened with Gina Carano. No public firing, no headlines, just a clean sweep from marketing materials and official platforms. Fan theories exploded. Disney was shadow deleting her to avoid backlash, enacting a playbook where controversy explodes. The company remains silent and then quietly scrubs association. This was the softest cancellation in Disney history, leading to the devastating perception that Rachel Zegler wasn't just having a rough year, she was being removed. And what made the timing even more suspicious? Rumors began surfacing that Zegler had fired her entire team around the same time her presence vanished from Disney+. Her manager, her agent, her publicist, all gone. Was this a desperate attempt to rebrand, or a full-blown meltdown? As Disney systematically distanced itself, the shocking truth of her vanishing act began to paint a picture of a star utterly alone, her fairy tale crumbling not just in theaters, but in the very digital realm where modern legends are made. And the question remained, what other secrets were lurking behind the persona, pushing Disney to such extreme measures? And here we arrive at the crushing irony, the kind of poetic justice that only Hollywood can deliver with such brutal precision. Rachel Zegler, once positioned as the shining future of Disney princesses, the face of a billion-dollar legacy, now finds herself at the heart of a retirement riddle, one not born of her own choosing, but seemingly imposed by the very studio that built her. Her digital disappearance from Disney+, the quiet scrubbing of her profile, the vanishing act from promotional materials. This wasn't a sudden public firing. This was a surgical erasure, a strategic pulling of the plug designed to minimize fallout without admitting a single thing. The irony, friends, is deafening. For a company built on perfect images and flawless illusions, when those illusions crack, they don't fix them, they replace them. Rachel Zegler didn't vanish overnight with a dramatic headline. Instead, she became the subject of a terrifyingly quiet, insidious process that only happens in the deepest, darkest corners of Hollywood PR. One missing tile at a time, one silent decision at a time, she was erased. The studio that once branded her as the face of their future now won't even acknowledge her name on their flagship platform. This is the ultimate corporate move. When a project or a star becomes too toxic to touch, the safest, most subtle move is to pretend they never happened. And the layers of this unfolding aftermath only deepen. While Disney was quietly performing its digital exorcism, Rachel Zegler's other major project, her highly anticipated Broadway debut in Evita, was simultaneously imploding in public. What was supposed to be her comeback, a shift in narrative, a chance to prove her live stage prowess, turned into a nightmare of backstage whispers about chaos, heated rehearsals, and crew members walking out. Leaked documents allegedly described Zegler as uncoachable, volatile, and emotionally erratic. The perception solidified. The pattern of controversy and industry isolation was now impossible to ignore. This is where behind the persona truly clashes with harsh reality. The confident, almost dismissive public statements about the original Snow White, the alleged disdain for the classic story. These actions, once chalked up to youthful exuberance or a desire for a modern edge, now seem to have been the very fuse that lit the powder keg. The internet, ever relentless, pieced together every quote, every perceived slight, creating a narrative of arrogance that, whether fair or not, became indelibly linked to her. And the result? Disney, the ultimate puppet master of its brand, simply made her disappear. Her silence now, her refusal to apologize or defend herself, her alleged firing of her entire team, agent, manager, publicist, it all screams a desperate loss of control. No studio backing her, no team managing her, no platform promoting her. With both Snow White and Evita crashing down simultaneously, the perception is spreading. Rachel Zegler isn't just having a rough year, she's being removed. This isn't just the natural fallout from two failed projects. This is a strategic exorcism. The fairy tale is over, and the happily ever after. It's been quietly canceled. But the final haunting question remains. Is this the end of her story, or just the silent prelude to something even more drastic?
This thing has to be really, really bad. I mean, the critics were looking for any excuse to give it a high score. They know that conservatives don't like Rachel Zegler. Like, even they couldn't find a way to pretend that this piece of trash is anything but a piece of trash. And just to show you how trashy this is, here's a clip of Rachel Zegler performing a song from the film, apparently.
They say all you have to do true is let it echo. Your voice will carry.
Most generic, reheated pop music slop imaginable. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. So a truly bad song with some bad life advice on top of it.
So it's a kind of a hilarious question to say, like, what drew you to the material? Is that, like, I didn't realize that I was reading lines of Dopey. It said, like, Jeff and Amy were reading lines. And then our director, Mark Webb, on Zoom was like, you know, and then Dopey's gonna look at you and whistle. And I took a pause and realized what I was auditioning for, and then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
We covered woke Snow White, no longer white, snow taupe, snow beige, snow swarthy, snow's not swarthy. Some kind of sediment or sand that is no longer. This young woman just explained the far more egregious changes to the story than the casting of this out-of-place actress.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White.
So here we stand, at the edge of the unfolding aftermath. Rachel Zegler, the once heralded star, has gone from the future of Disney to a ghost in their digital archives. Snow White, her supposed crowning glory, sits as the lowest-rated Disney princess film on IMDb. Its box office a catastrophe. Her Broadway comeback in Evita reportedly imploded behind the scenes. Her entire team summarily dismissed. And through it all, her voice remains silent. A silence that screams volumes in a world where every celebrity post is a calculated move. This isn't just about a bad movie. It's about the ruthless efficiency of a corporate titan. Disney, the ultimate puppet master of its brand, doesn't like mess. It doesn't like unpredictability, and it definitely doesn't like risk. When a star becomes a liability, especially one tied to a billion-dollar legacy like Snow White, the response isn't loud, it's surgical. All signs point to a very deliberate strategy behind the scenes. A quiet retirement riddle, an almost complete erasure. Insiders are already whispering about rescheduled reshoots, about rebranding efforts, even about alternate cuts of Snow White that might de-emphasize Zegler's role. Some rumors even suggest Disney filmed backup scenes with stand-ins, just in case the backlash intensified. A chilling thought that speaks volumes about the level of perceived risk. This is the studio that once digitally replaced actors and pulled content without warning. Nothing, absolutely nothing, is off the table when brand protection is at stake. The playbook is chillingly simple. Let the controversy explode, then wait, don't respond. Quietly begin scrubbing all association. Shift focus to other projects, newer, safer, distraction-ready content. And that's exactly what Disney is doing right now, diverting attention to animated sequels and nostalgic content that doesn't spark public rage. Because in the age of viral outrage, corporate survival is about distance. And when a project becomes too toxic, the safest move is to pretend it never happened. Rachel Zegler didn't vanish overnight. She wasn't publicly fired. There was no explosive headline or viral meltdown. What happened to her is something far scarier, something that only occurs in the deepest, darkest corners of Hollywood PR. She was quietly erased, one missing tile at a time, one silent decision at a time. Disney Plus no longer promotes Snow White. Rachel's actor profile is gone. Searches now lead to broken links. The studio that once branded her as the face of their future now won't even acknowledge her name. No co-stars defending her, no publicists cleaning it up. Not even a statement from Disney pretending to support her. Just silence. Because in this business, being controversial is survivable. Even failure is forgivable. But when your brand becomes a liability to their brand, that's when the quiet deletion begins. So tell me, was this the final nail in Rachel Zegler's career coffin? And that's the tea for today, my little gossip gremlins. If you enjoyed this drama buffet, don't forget to hit that like button like it's your ex's new partner's Instagram. Aggressively and with zero shame. Beauty. Subscribe to Fame Files so you never miss a single scandal, meltdown, or red carpet disaster. I'm literally serving up hot gossip every single day, even if my Wi-Fi begs me to stop. And listen, be a doll and tap that bell too, okay? Because your girl Macy's got bills to pay, celeb egos to roast, and a grocery cart full of overpriced almond milk that won't buy itself. Shopping cart money. So until next time, stay nosy, stay fabulous, and remember, I spill it so you don't have to sip in silence. Bye.